She vanished without a trace. Then sent me coordinates 20 years later, part 1. The disappearance. My mom disappeared on a Tuesday. October 17th, 2005. I was 10. I remember the rain that morning, steady, gray, cold. She dropped me off at school like always, kissed my forehead in the front seat, and said, "Today's going to be a big day." I never saw her again. There was no accident. No goodbye note. Just nothing. By 3 p.m., she hadn't come to pick me up. By 6, my dad had called the police. By midnight, I knew something terrible had happened. Her name was Jessica Mercer, 32 years old, bright smile, auburn hair, graphic designer. No enemies. No warning signs. Everyone loved her. For years, I clung to the idea that someone took her. Abducted. Killed. The police searched. They questioned neighbors, friends, co-workers. But no leads. No suspects. No body. My dad fell apart. He tried to stay strong for me. But within 6 months, he lost his job, sold the house, and moved us into my aunt's place. He started drinking. Stopped laughing. By the time I was 13, we didn't talk about mom anymore. She became a ghost in our house. A name we didn't say. A photo we avoided on the wall. I grew up with a hole in my chest the size of her memory. Eventually, I learned to live with it. Sort of. At 25, I moved out, got a job, and started therapy. I thought I was doing okay. Until last winter. That's when I got the letter. It arrived on a Thursday. Plain envelope. No return address. Inside was a single piece of paper. Typed "No greeting." No signature. Just this. 42.7652 degrees north. 73.8704 degrees west. Bring no one. I'm sorry. I stared at it for hours. At first, I thought it was a prank. Spam. A mistake. Then I Googled the coordinates. They pointed to a forested area just outside Albany, New York. About 3 hours from where I lived. My heart dropped into my stomach. No. One knew what those numbers would mean to me. But I knew. This wasn't random. I looked at the envelope again. The postage was from upstate New York. Mailed 2 days earlier. I sat on my couch, holding that piece of paper, trying to breathe. Trying to understand how this could even be real. Could she be alive? After all these years. Why now? I called my therapist. Didn't call my dad. I couldn't. I didn't sleep that night. 2 days later, I drove upstate. Didn't tell anyone. I told work I was sick. The GPS led me to a narrow gravel road that branched off a barely paved highway. I parked where the trail became too tight for my car. It was cold, overcast, silent. I walked for about 10 minutes through leafless trees, my breath showing in the air. Then I saw a small metal box, bolted to a tree, like a geocache. Only older. Rusted. I opened it. Inside was another note. Folded. This one was handwritten. If you found this, then I still exist. And I'm sorry for everything I missed. Don't follow me. But know this. I left to protect you. You were never in danger. But I was. I felt my knees buckled. I sat on the forest floor and cried. Like I hadn't cried since I was a kid. She's alive. But where? And why did she disappear? Was someone after her? Was she running from something? Or was she hiding from us? I wanted answers. But that note, it raised more questions than it answered. Still, I couldn't walk away. The next week, I returned. This time, I brought a notebook, flashlight, gloves. I searched the area. Nothing new, but then I noticed the back of the metal box had been scratched, faintly .3 numbers, carved in tiny digits. 18.3.26. I didn't recognize the pattern, but it felt like a date. March 26, 2018. I went home. Searched everything. Old news stories, obituaries, crime logs, property records. Then, something clicked. March 26, 2018, a cabin fire. One person hospitalized with burns. No identity ever released. The article had a photo. Charred remains of what looked like a small home in the woods. Location? Exactly 1 mile from the coordinates she gave me. What if that was hers? What if she'd been living there for years? And then, someone found her. Was she hurt? Killed? Or did she flee again? My heart was in my throat. I had to find out. I contacted the journalist who wrote the article. Said I was a grad student doing research. He agreed to a short call. Oh yeah, he said. I remember that case. Real mystery. Cabin didn't belong to anyone. No rental record, no tax file, no ID on the woman inside. She didn't die? I asked. Nope. She vanished. Walked out of the hospital 2 days later. No trace since. I thanked him. Hung up. My hands were shaking. It was her. It had to be. She had survived something. And run. Again. But why? What was she running from? That night, I looked through the box of my mom's old things. A container I hadn't opened in years. I found her sketchbooks, letters, and a journal she kept when I was little. I flipped to the last page she ever wrote in. March 5th, 2005. Just weeks before she vanished. One line stood out. They came again last night. Watch from the tree line. I don't think they'll stop this time. My stomach turned. Who was she talking about? What had she gotten into? And what had she kept hidden? From everyone? Part 2. The secrets buried in her past. After I read that final journal entry, I couldn't sleep for days. They came again last night. Watch from the tree line. I don't think they'll stop this time. It echoed in my head like a warning. Belle? Who were they? Why didn't she tell anyone? Why disappear instead of going to the police? Unless the police were part of IT. IT sounded paranoid. The kind of thing you'd write if you were scared, confused, or mentally unraveling. But my mom had never shown signs of paranoia. She was stable, grounded, rational. Whatever happened in those last weeks before she vanished, it had scared her enough to walk away from her entire life, including me. That I needed to know what she was running from. I took a week off work and dove into records, public and private. I searched for anyone named Jessica Mercer, but most results were either obituaries or women who clearly weren't her. Then I tried something else. I searched for missing person cases around the same time she vanished, women in our area. I wondered if any other disappearances matched, and I found one. A woman named Elena Grayson had gone missing from a nearby town 2 months before my mom. Similar age, similar build, similar hair color. There were rumors that Elena had been part of something, a whistleblower in a pharmaceutical company. She'd filed a lawsuit against her employer, then suddenly dropped it and disappeared. N01 had connected her case to my mom's. But something about the timing and location felt off. Was it possible they knew each other? I looked up the company Elena had worked for, Arcturus Biosolutions, a biotech startup that had gone under in 2006. Then I checked where my mom had worked. She'd done freelance graphic design, mostly from home. But there was a brief stint where she'd taken on a contract with a medical research firm in the area. I dug up one of her old invoices from our garage storage. IT was addressed to Arcturus Biosolutions. My blood ran cold. I found an address listed for the now-defunct company. It was a warehouse on the edge of town, long abandoned. The next day, I drove there. The place was gutted. Windows broken. Chain link fence rusted and falling apart. No signage. No cameras. I parked across the street and walked around the side. The rear door was open, not kicked in, just open. Inside was darkness, rot, silence. Dust thick on everything. I found some old file cabinets, most empty. One had a burned binder with half-melted labels. I could only make out fragments. Test. Group B. Reek. Symptoms escalate. Notify field liaise. Psych evals inconclusive. Recommend transfer. Subject 42. Instability noted after withdrawal phase. My hands were shaking. What was this place? Was my mom working on this? Was she part of this? I snapped a few photos. Left quickly. That night, I backed up all the files, the notes, the journal, everything. I needed to talk to someone who knew her back then. I called my aunt. Her sister. She was hesitant at first. Why are you bringing this up now? She asked. I told her everything. The letter, the coordinates, the metal box, the burned cabin, the warehouse. There was a long pause. Then she said, Daniel, I didn't want to tell you this, but your mom wasn't just working design for that company. She was involved in something bigger. What do you mean? I asked. She told me, just before she vanished, that she'd seen something she wasn't supposed to. Documents. Experiments. People being hurt. She was scared. Not just paranoid. Truly scared. Said she was being followed. By who? She didn't know. She thought it might have been the government. Or private contractors. She wasn't sure. I asked why no one reported this. She begged me not to. Said if I told anyone, she'd vanish for good. I didn't know she'd meant it literally. I felt sick. So she ran. I said, she ran, my aunt confirmed. And I never saw her again. That night, I sat with a glass of water, staring at the journal. Her notes. The burn memo. Something happened at Arcturus. something that spooked her, and maybe others that I needed more. I went digging again. This time into Arcturus staff records. Most employees had moved on, but one name stood out: Dr. Leonard Hale, lead researcher. He'd worked on human trials. After the company collapsed, he left the state. I searched for him and found a recent article. He'd been arrested in Nevada for falsifying medical data in a separate biotech firm. He was out on bail. I found an address. 2 days later, I flew to Vegas. I knocked on his door. He opened with tired eyes, suspicious, thin. "I'm not press," I said. "I'm here about Arcturus. About my mom, Jessica Mercer." His face changed. A flicker of fear. He stepped outside and closed the door behind him. "She was smart," he said. "Too smart. She figured out what we were doing way before the others. Tried to warn people. They didn't listen." "What were you doing?" I asked. He hesitated. "Off-books drug trials. Memory suppression. Behavioral reprogramming. Funded by a private defense contractor. We weren't just testing cures. We were testing control." I felt sick. "She tried to leak it," he said. "I don't know who stopped her. But after that, she vanished. I assumed she was dead." "She's not," I said. "She's alive. She left me a message." His face twisted. "Then don't follow her. If she's still out there, she's running for a reason. And whoever let her go last time may not be so generous again." I flew home. My head was spinning. My mom hadn't just disappeared. She'd uncovered a secret big enough to get people hurt or killed. That she'd run to protect herself. And maybe me. But now, I'd stirred the waters again, and I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. The next morning, there was a second letter at my door, no postage. Just slipped under the frame. One sentence. "You were warned. Don't make us come back." My blood froze. Part 3. The truth beneath everything. The letter on my doorstep didn't have an address, a stamp, or a signature, just a single line. "You were warned. Don't make us come back." I stood there, barefoot, heart pounding, staring at the paper. Like it might explode. They knew where I lived. They were watching. My hands shook as I locked the door, pulled the blinds, and backed away from the windows. This was real. All of it. I'd crossed a line I didn't know existed. And now I was being told, warned, to stop digging. But that only made me want to dig deeper. Because if they were this scared of me finding something, then it had to be big. I didn't go to work. I didn't call anyone. I just started piecing things together. I reviewed everything I had. My mom's journal, including the entry about people watching her from the trees. The coordinates. The box bolted to the tree. The cabin fire. Dr. Hale's confession. The memo mentioning behavioral reprogramming. And now, a new threat. This wasn't just about corporate corruption. This was about control. Experiments. Secrets someone had spent decades trying to bury. And my mom had been right in the middle of it. I pulled out her sketchbooks. Years of drawings. Most innocent. But some different. Symbols. Patterns. Strange faces with no eyes. One page had a diagram. Circles nested inside each other. Words scribbled in the margins. Initiate sequence failsafes, not secure. I didn't understand it. But something told me it wasn't just art. That's when I noticed a recurring number in the sketches. 714-3 at least a dozen times. Scrawled in corners. Hidden in designs. I searched for it online. Nothing. But when I ran it through FOIA request databases tied to Arcturus and other defunct bioresearch grants, I got a hit. Project 714, be classified under Department of Behavioral Integration Research. DBR, 2004. There was only one public reference. An outdated document released in error. One line stood out. 714. B results exceed protocol expectations in long-term subject stability. Recommend remote relocation and Phase 3 observation. Remote relocation. Long-term subjects. Observation. They'd moved people. Hidden them. Had my mom been one of those subjects? Or had she helped others escape? Either way, she'd seen too much. And now, someone was making sure I didn't see it. 2. I knew I couldn't go to the police. What would I even tell them? My mom disappeared 20 years ago, and now a shadow agency is threatening me for asking questions. They'd laugh me out the door, but there was one person I hadn't talked to. My father, he never liked to talk about my mom. But maybe he knew more than he let on. I drove to his house that night. He was surprised to see me. Older, grayer Still tired in the eyes, we sat in silence for a minute before I finally asked, Dad, what do you really know about Mom's disappearance? He looked down, sighed. I was hoping you'd never ask that. My heart dropped. He poured a glass of scotch and sat across from me. I knew she was scared, he began. She started locking the doors twice, setting alarms in the middle of the day. Said people were following her, listening through the TV. Did you believe her? I asked. I didn't want to. Thought it was stress. Motherhood. Hormones. But then I saw a black SUV parked outside our house 2 nights in a row. Men in suits pretending to fix the telephone pole. One of them had a gun holster showing when he bent down. He took a breath. The night before she disappeared, she kissed me and said, "Take care of Danny. No matter what happens, don't look for me." I stared at him. You never told me that. I was ashamed and terrified. I thought, maybe they'd come for me too. Who were they? I don't know, but I know they were real. I left his house feeling equal parts vindicated and sick. This wasn't paranoia, that my mom hadn't imagined it. She had been hunted that I had to find her, not just for answers, but to warn her. Whoever had sent that letter, they weren't bluffing. That I drove back to the woods near the coordinates. Not the same trail. A different one nearby. And there, almost hidden under a rock, I found another metal box. This one was newer. Cleaner. Inside was a flash drive. No note. I drove home, booted up an old laptop, just in case, and opened the files. There were videos, grainy surveillance footage, clips of men in lab coats, subjects restrained in chairs, blinking under harsh lights. Point 1 video was labeled JM Subject Interview Number 6. Jessica Mercer. I clicked it. There she was. My mom. In a room, hair shorter, face tired but defiant. I told you already, she said. I won't help you anymore. I won't design this. Off-camera voice. You were brought in under contract, Jessica. Not for this. This isn't treatment. It's control. You signed the NDA. You've seen what happens when people breach it. Then do it. But I won't be part of this. She stared into the camera. Right at me. Right through time. Daniel, if you ever see this, I'm sorry. I tried to stop them. I tried. The clip ended. I sat in silence for 10 minutes, hands over my mouth. She had left that video. For me, the final file was a document. Phase termination protocol, Mercer, Jessica. Date, March 26, 2018. Same date as the cabin fired. It wasn't an accident. They'd come for her. But she'd escaped again. How? I didn't know. But one thing was clear. She had stayed hidden for 20 years. Left breadcrumbs, just in case. And now that I had followed them, I was in danger too. I made backups of everything. 3 hard drives. One went in a safety deposit box. One I mailed to a journalist. The third stayed with me. Then I disappeared for a while. No social media. No phone GPS. I moved cities. Changed names. Because the day after I posted one cryptic sentence on Reddit, my mom was never missing. She was silenced. I got another letter. You've made your choice. We'll be watching. That was 6 months ago. I don't know where my mom is now, but I know she's alive. And I know she's still running. And now, so am I. But here's what I do know. She wasn't crazy. She was brave. She sacrificed everything to protect me. And the people who tried to silence her? They underestimated what a son would do to uncover the truth. Moral of the story: some disappearances aren't accidents. Some people go off the grid because the grid is killing them. And when someone tells you not to dig, that usually means you're about to hit something big. Never stop asking questions, especially the ones that scare you. Because the answers, they're what they're most afraid of.